A rooftop or packaged unit is a unit that has the heating and the cooling assembled in one complete package. I know that sounds redundant, that's the best way we can describe it. In looking at these units, per the ComSop, we've created a wonderful checklist for you. Some of the items on the checklist do show systems and do show procedures that might go beyond the standards of practice, but most of the things you want to do should fall within the standards of practice. And so we'll talk about that as we go through this particular inspection. When we look at the rooftop unit, we have a main service disconnect switch, which I have in the off position, just for making sure that it doesn't come on while we're working on it. I have a filter access panel. I have a gas intake. I have a condensate drip. I have a main burner apparatus. I have a flue pipe. And then around this other side, I have our coils. We'll look at the coils in a moment. When we look at this rooftop unit, we do have a label plate with a model, a serial number, an age, and a size. That's all present. You should never operate a unit if it has been shut down. Remember, as an inspector, you were not there when the unit was shut down, so you should not turn it back on. I did the shutdown on the unit so that it doesn't come on when I'm in it, and then I will turn it back on before I finish this inspection. It's very important per the ComSop that if you can't get to it, if you can't report on it, if you can't access it, you should let your clients know and why. These are items as we go down our checklist that we want to make sure that we do. It's important as you're just getting started to use a checklist, because even pilots before they take off in an airplane use a checklist, and they might have flown 1,000 different flights. And so checklists will help you stay on track and make sure you do all your parts. First thing we want to look at when we look at this particular unit is you want to look for corrosion, you want to look for damage, you want to look for rust, or any other surface damage that you might find at any point. Then beyond that, we can look at the fins for the coil, and we can look at how it's operating as well. Some units have guards, like this unit does, and some units just have exposed fins. I particularly love units with the guards, because the guards will protect the fins from hail or any other damage. And so it's very important in this particular unit. It is a 2019, and it does have this wonderful guard system on it, and the fins then therefore should be immaculate. There could be debris on them, and a lot of times this will catch the larger debris, and they do come off for service. But the damage from debris could be cottonwood trees or any other trees that are dropping leaves or debris on it. Technically, as we inspect fins, we can damage up to 20% of the fins without having issue with the cooling potential of the unit. So that's something to look for as you're looking at damage, hail damage, impact damage. Sometimes you'll see damage from the crane as the crane brought it up, where it's dented the fins a little bit. But again, 20% has always been the threshold for fin damage. There should be at least 30 inches of clearance around the entire appliance, so that you can have a work platform. That's all four sides. In a lot of roofs, you'll have multiple rooftop units, and so there needs to be at least 30 inches between every one of them so that you can maneuver around them and check. And then another thing to look for is, no matter if it's a rooftop unit, no matter if we've got other types of heating, ventilating, and cooling equipment on the roof, there should be a convenience outlet. Some form of service outlet within 25 foot of that appliance. And the idea is the technician needs to come up here and be able to service this. And if they can't plug in some of their equipment, then they're taking an extension cord, putting it over to the side of the building, or putting it up through a roof hatch, and then they can't service the equipment safely. So we want to identify if there's a convenience outlet within 25 foot. On this unit, we have an economizer. And so let's take a look at the economizer, and we'll move from there. As you go through the ComSop and you do a thorough rooftop unit inspection, this is where a decision needs to be made. There's nothing in the standards that require you to take any panels off this unit. A lot of inspectors do. There's nothing wrong with taking panels off. Sometimes you make a determination of taking a panel off if the unit does not look perfect, if the unit has a clunky sound, if the unit just gives you a tingle like, boy, I need to look at it a little closer, or you make a decision in your business that you want to take every panel off of every unit every time. Those are the choices you get to make. As per the ComSop, our standards say, run the unit, take note of it, and then go to the next section of the inspection. In this particular case, I want to take the filter cover off. I will take the filter covers off a sampling of the units when I inspect them. If I have 20 units on the roof, I pick a sample and that's what I want to look at, just to look at maintenance. Filter maintenance is a great test to the rest of the unit's maintenance. If the filters haven't been maintained, then the odds are the rest of the unit has not been maintained. And so that's a key tip for you to kind of know how the system looks. I will also sometimes take these units off when they're older, because then that gives me an inkling of how much time might be left on, should I want to talk about that with my clients. And so let's take the filter cover off and let's see what the filters look like on this unit. The filter cover is located right here. I have already removed the screws, and then that provides me with the filters. On these particular filters, they slide in and they slide out. They're fairly typical, normal filters. They're a little compressed. They've been drawn in. They're a soft media filter, a very low MRF filter. And so on that, it's been drawn in and it's collapsed. So that tells me that it has not been maintained recently. A little higher grade filter, one of the thicker MRF filters, might hold up a little longer and not collapse upon itself. In this particular unit, it's an array of 4 filters. I've got 2 on the top and I've got 2 at the bottom, and they slide in. And so this would give me a great look at that. This is also a good look for us at some of the components that are on the inside of the cooling side of this unit. I have my evaporative coil, which again goes to my condensate drain. I have my compressor here, and then I have the rest of the blower unit as it cycles through. It's a very simple apparatus, and that's why we love them so much. Then on the other side of this is my heating side. And we can take that apart too, should you wish. But in this case, I am not. We don't want to take that apart. We're going to take and fire this up and listen to it operate. So let me put this cover back on before we do that. Well, following the checklist, we are in the cooling cycle of this appliance. I have turned the switch back on. Our fans are running. Just like any split unit you might inspect, on the cooling side, we should have warm air coming off the top of this, which means we're producing cool air to the inside. And so when you're inspecting this, you want to make sure we've got warm air coming off of it. There's no excessive vibrations. Again, we've looked at the fins. We're creating condensation, so we know we're making evaporative air. And then the only other thing we need to do is go inside and do a temperature check across the system to make sure we are producing cold air. If we were testing the heating side, which we'll do when we go inside and exercise the thermostat, we would want to make sure that we're producing flue gas coming out of here and then warm air in the comforted cycle. If you had 2 people with you, yourself and an assistant, you could have somebody down below exercise the thermostat and switch the system over. The interesting thing about most RTUs, why they're so wonderful on commercial buildings, is there's typically a heater built onto the onto the compressor, a sump heater. And what that does is allows most of these units to operate at that below 65 degree mark. And so you can cycle these between heat and cool and heat most times of the year. There's not a lockout on them that says you shouldn't operate the air conditioner in the middle of the winter. I would still hesitate operating it in the Midwest at 40 below zero, but at a certain few temperatures lower than 65, you'll certainly get a good temperature check of the air conditioner. Something you can consider, but you can also say that you only operated the heating side or the cooling side. That would be a decision you want to make and document on your report for your clients. But nonetheless, we're in the heating side. We're going to go down below and we're going to check the cooling as it operates, and then we'll turn the thermostat and check the heating to make sure it operates. So we'll be right back. So if we're done with the rooftop portion of the RTU unit or packaged unit, then the next element of the inspection would be to operate it. Again, if I was working in tandem with a teammate, then I could be up on the roof, they could be down here exercising the thermostats, and I would be there while they were doing it. I could come down here, exercise the thermostat, run back up on the roof, watch it in that operation, run back down here, turn it to the other operation, run back up on the roof. That's a lot of work and that's a lot of effort. Certainly can do that. There's a lot of different ways in which you can operate your practice. Again, we do not have to turn the unit, take any elements of the unit off, but we should note if it's working or not working. That can be done right here. The thermostat was set at 78. I've turned it down to 66 in the cooling, and so I would use just a normal infrared thermometer. I would use just a normal infrared thermometer, and I would test the cooling temperature coming out of the system. And that's what I would do, is I test the supply, I would test the return, make sure that I'm pushing the proper delta or change across the system for which you operate your business. Everybody has a little different change in temperature. Some are 14 to 22, some are 12 to 20 degrees of change. Everybody operates different. You'll make sure you let your clients know which you do, and then you'll test the system. Once you've taken the temperature reading, I've got 64 degrees coming out of the supply. I have got 78 coming out of the return. That's 14 degrees. And so at 14 degrees, the system is properly working. So then I would move on, test the next system or the next unit. And if I got 20, I will repeat this 20 times. And then I can also come over, I can take the thermostat, I can change it from heat to cool, from cool to heat, take the thermostat up and operate it as well. And so it's very important to test all of those units throughout the entire building, and then you'll know accurately if the rooftop package unit functions.